What's going on with you, YouTube? Just coming here with some more writing advice. This is what I originally. This is how I first started this channel. So I just wanted to touch bases with y'all once again, and just kind of give you an idea of just how I write stuff. Now, the first thing I usually do is always. I mean, this is kind of cliche because a lot of people hear this too, but they tell you to write what you know. That's like the biggest thing is to write what you know. So like if you have like a if you, so what I simply mean by that is just whatever you had experience with. Uh, like was you in the ghetto or something like that? If you live in the ghetto and you can write like stories based on like your experiences in the ghetto or maybe somebody else's experiences or things of that nature. Maybe that's something you see every day. You can write a fictional story out of it. You can make you can mix fantasy in it if possible. That's if you can do things like that. If you can make genres that well, you can even do a nonfiction story about it. A true story about somebody's life or maybe your life if you want to write a story about your life too. So that's what I really mean by that's one thing I mean by like writing a story that writing something that something that sticks to you. You don't want to be like a nurse or you don't want to be writing a story about like nurse and doctor procedures. Like I read in a short story one time, somebody posted online, and the procedures were wrong. I was kind of like, wait a minute, procedures they don't do doctor or nursing procedures like this. This is off. So I mean, and people who are really like reading your stuff, they'll be able to notice that. I'm gonna use a friend's analogy, and it's a perfect example too. When you're writing a book, you're like a magician. You're like a magician at a magic act. So you're doing all this stuff. You're putting stuff up your sleeves. You're doing all this stuff. You're hiding cards, pulling coins off of people's ears, and they get excited like, "Oh my goodness, how did you do that?" It's kind of the same thing when you're writing a story. You're like a magician. So if you fumble the ball somehow, so if you have like bad grammar, your story doesn't make sense in certain parts. That could be like the cards fall. You're not doing the trick fast enough or whatever, and then somebody in the crowd points it out and goes like, "Hey, I saw you slide that extra card in your thing. You're not slick." Or, "Nah, you had another coin when you went to go pull it from that dude's ear." So that's how you got to look at it. So because you mess up basically when you don't write properly. So that's what I mean by like that extends my point of write what you know. Because if you write what you know, a lot of people are going to look at this and go like, "Oh, okay, this is cool," or just write something you're really interested in because eventually you're going to you're going to want to do the research. You're going to be adamant about doing the research. You're going to be adamant about putting the characters in certain places, things of that nature. I mean, I've never done like I never done any crime or anything in my life. I mean, I'm pretty straight and narrow. Uh, I think I only did like six. I've been locked up for 6 days because of a traffic ticket. That's literally an unpaid traffic ticket. That's the extent of my criminal record. So like, but I usually see like other people out here because I live in a not I don't live in a too safe environment, I should say. I live in one of them rough environments. So I kind of look at people around here, and I kind of know family who has gone through certain things. That's why I write. That's one of the reasons why I write crime. That and I read Sin City and 100 Bullets, and I just became really interested in crime. Like, okay, I want to write some more. I want to actually write the stuff myself now, because I used to write horror when I first came out. So I just have a really big interest in the crime genre. So I know like a lot of people like when they write things, you have to write just what you know, what you're interested in, Because if you're writing a story and you don't know what you're talking about, and you're not interested in it, again, people are going to see that when they actually read your material. They're gonna be like, wow, this person doesn't even know what they're talking about. So you just gotta kind of stick to your genre, and again, stick to what you know. And if something catches you up, we're in the golden age of, well, I don't know how I could put it as golden age, but I'll just put it plain and simply, we're in the digital age. We're in the age where you can whip out your cell phone and you can go to Google. And again, you have that tool. Like, if you don't know like a certain thing or whatever, if you don't know how like a certain operation goes or something like that, you don't know how a certain thing works, just Google it. Google, hey, how does Google uh, heart transplants, and then it'll give you a detailed thing of how a heart transplant works, and then you can build off of that and go like, okay, you could probably even add to it. You can go like, okay, well, okay, so this is how you do a heart transplant, but then I can do this to make a twist to it, and then do this, just kind of play around with it a little bit. So I mean, that is the whole that is like the biggest like base, if anything, for writing a story. Like, if you don't know what you're writing, write what you know. Write with what you're comfortable with. Write within your comfort zone. Like, if you like to write, if your comfort zone is fantasy, write fantasy. If you are like a big sci-fi nerd, I'm not. I don't really care for sci-fi, but if you're a big sci-fi nerd, write. You can write the next your version of Star Wars, or your version of Blade Runner, or whatever ones is out there. So that is like the biggest basis, man. Just write what you know. As a person, just write what you know. I know I'm repeating that a lot in this video, but that is like the biggest importance of writing, or picking out, selecting a topic to write about. Because if you do that, if you write what you know, and you write what you're experienced with, like if you were like a longtime police officer, there you go, you can write cop stories. Because you'll have an idea of what you're talking about as you're writing it. Again, same with being in the medical field. If you've been a doctor your entire life, or if you're like John Grisham. John Grisham was a lawyer, and he writes something about law, stories of fictional stories about law. So, he wrote The Summons, good book. He wrote The Brethren. That's another good book. If you haven't read any of those, check those out. But he's got other ones I want to read too. The Firm. So like, I think like, again, just write what you know, write what you're experienced with too. And again, if it's something that you're really interested in writing, like I want to write again my political thriller, and you don't have any type of like experience in that field at all, but you're really interested in writing it, do some research. Like, I mean, I know it's going to seem like you're going back to school or whatever, but that'll be your homework. Your homework will be to just do some extensive research. Talk to people. Go out and actually talk to people who have experienced it. Maybe talk to maybe I go out and talk to like a politician. We have the Ohio's State House downtown. So I'll probably go to the State House and talk to some of the politicians that work down there and get an idea of how politics work. So there's so much things you can do for research. You can go that extra mile. I mean, that like talking to people that are working that field. That's going the extra mile to do your research. But you're doing research, so that way when you write the story, or write whatever it is you're doing, it will help you out in the long run. So there's just a few little pointers that I'm giving out, but yeah, that's the biggest basis. Again, write what you know. So that's it for this video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.